Hey, it's Matt Karamazov. Welcome back to the channel. So today's book is one that you could easily pass by in the bookstore without giving it a second glance. It's got a very forgettable title. It's called How to Live a Good Life by Massimo Pigliucci, but it really deserves a second glance. Massimo Pigliucci, he's one of the more popular popularizers of Stoicism, which is a philosophy of resilience and overcoming hardships and making the most out of your one and only life. Everyone talks about it now. It's everywhere. Maybe it's just, the people who read these kinds of things, but if you're involved in that at all, it's incredibly popular nowadays for good reason. It changes people's lives in real, measurable ways. That being said, I picked it up immediately because I had this rule in my life whereby, whenever Massimo Pigliucci comes out with a new book, I buy it and then I read it. It's pretty much served me well. How it works generally is that he will come out with a new book, I will buy it immediately, I'll read it in a few days, and I will apply it to my life. My life will get better, and I will be grateful that he had wrote it, and then he'll write a new book, and then I'll buy that, and then the cycle just repeats itself ad infinitum. That's pretty much how it goes. Of course, it has one of those titles where you don't want to be caught in public reading a book called How to Live a Good Life. He's got another one called A Field Guide to a Happy Life. It's very short. It's on Epictetus, which was really good. I enjoyed it. I got a lot out of it. That being said, you'll never see me in public reading A Field Guide to a Happy Life or How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's just not going to happen. That being said, it's an excellent book. Now, How to Live a Good Life is a brief overview of many of the major religious, philosophical, and ethical traditions operating in the world today, and it's an illustration of a few of their basic tenets as they're actually lived by the real people who live according to those traditions. So the essays are grounded in personal experience, and they've got the general aim to inspire the reader to develop or at least think about a personal guiding philosophy of their own. I'm partial to existentialism, especially the Colin Wilson variety, and I'll link down to The Outsider, one of my favorite books, down below in the description. But Sky Cleary's essay on the movement of existentialism was particularly well done. That being said, of course, I would say that, because existentialism has been something of a guiding light for me for quite some time. A word of advice, though, do not skip any of the essays just because you think that they won't be of any value to you. Skipping is usually okay when reading. I can definitely condone that in some instances, but in this case, I think you might miss something important. I read every single essay in the book, even the stuff that I didn't particularly care about, and, I found things in those essays that I wasn't particularly enjoying, things that were worth wading through the entire book in order to find. And, that's one of the sort of trade-offs that you can make. You can waste a lot of time, looking for the gold, but then you can strike gold where you least expect it. And that happened to me a bunch of times in this book. And I'm gonna share a few of those times with you when we talk about, the best ways to live a good life. To give you an idea of what I mean, these are 9 ways that I've found in this book to live a good life, to help you live the best possible life. So when you're ready to go, let's start with number 1. Number 1 is to develop a philosophy of life. See, philosophies of life aren't really generally well thought out if they've ever been really articulated at all. We all live as though we have a philosophy of life, and the actions that we take could be seen as a statement about how people everywhere should behave, but a tragic few of us ever give it any sort of serious thought. So if you had to explain your philosophy of life to someone else, would they understand it? Would they want to be friends with someone like you? How does your philosophy make you behave? Have you ever thought about it? You don't have to publish a manifesto or anything, but drifting doesn't do it. So having a firm statement of what you believe and why, how you conduct your life and why, what you think it all means, can only be a good thing. Number 2, be prepared to lose people and be lost to them. This is just what happens to people who are alive. At some point, they aren't anymore. How does knowing that, well, I guess we all know that, but realizing that make our lives better? The short answer, of course, is that it doesn't, at least not directly. But the alternative is to just go through life thinking that tomorrow will always be there, that no one will ever leave you, and that others don't rely on you for part of their happiness. Instead, the transitory nature of existence makes it more special. If we were all immortal, there would be no reason to appreciate the people you love at all. You'd put off telling them how much they mean to you indefinitely, and that's no way to live. Number 3, put utility aside and just connect. You hear this shit all the time. Be nice to people. You never know who they know. As if that were the only reason you needed to be nice to people. As if the only possible thing that could be said for being nice to people and treating them with common dignity was that they could somehow be useful to you in the future. In short, this is terrible advice to follow if you're really sincere about wanting to live a good life. Instead, it should be human dignity first, mutual benefit second. And it can even be a close second. There's nothing wrong with wanting to connect with people who are going to be useful to you down the line. It just can't be your sole motivation for treating people well. Number 4, set the best possible example for those who will come after. Here's an example of what I said earlier when I mentioned that skipping a section you don't care so much about might not be a great idea, at least not with this book, because I don't even remember where this came from, but it was worth reading that particular essay because I came across this lesson, this idea. So previous generations have a variegated array of less than stellar, shall we say, moral concepts and lessons that we'd be better off forgetting. But future generations will probably find a lot of fault with some of the things we believe today. So, we pass on everything, consciously or unconsciously, and who's to say which moral standards of today future generations will find morally reprehensible? But if we maintain the intention of passing on only the best and constantly questioning ourselves about what that best might be, future generations will likely judge us less harshly. Number 5, start today. It's funny how older generations worked so hard to make things better for their children and grandchildren, and then they turn around and tell us that we have it so easy. But we still have plenty of work to do, and we need to start today. Goethe said, and this appears in his incredible play, Faust. Seriously, I highly recommend you read that play. He says that tomorrow we still miss what is not done today. You've probably heard the expression that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago and that the second best time is today. Well, that's still true. It's timeless. Once today slips away, it's gone forever. Everything we failed to do, we will have failed to do for all eternity. And that is a big responsibility. It's huge. The bottom line here is that our world has problems and that we have no time to lose. Number 6, share what you know. I've come to realize that the best way to learn something is to teach someone else. That's one of the main reasons I make these videos, actually. It strengthens and solidifies these concepts in your mind. The test of whether you've actually learned something is whether you can teach it to someone else. A corollary of this is that it's always too early to give up on someone. No one is lost. Trying to save someone else isn't necessarily the right attitude to take, but being a teacher benefits everyone with whom you come into contact. There's a ripple effect through time when you set out to teach someone else what you know, and when it's done in good faith, that ripple can turn into a positive tidal wave. So share what you know with someone else. Number 7, if you don't like your life, change it. I said earlier that I was partial to existentialism, and that is an understatement. The Outsider by Colin Wilson is a book that I push into as many people's hands as I possibly can, and I've developed a personal revulsion to the pessimism of certain so-called intellectuals who shall remain nameless that never seem to realize that life is the highest value. Life, existence, being is always good everywhere, and human beings always retain the power to be able to say yes to life in spite of everything. That's actually the title of a spectacular book by a Holocaust survivor by the name of Viktor Frankl, Yes to Life in Spite of Everything. And as H.G. Wells wrote, if you don't like your life, you can change it. We create ourselves in every moment, and we build our own future with every single choice we make in every single moment in which we're fortunate enough to be alive and active. So never, ever, ever relinquish that power over your own life. Your life is completely up to you, and the moment you realize that is the moment you have won your freedom. Number 8, do the most good that you can do. Existentialism fires me up for sure, but effective altruism is another movement that lights me up in almost exactly the same way. This philosophy of life is about setting up your life in such a way that you can help improve the lives of the most people. So effective altruists don't sacrifice their own happiness if they can help it, but they're always looking for ways to give more, to contribute more in any way that they can. They know the real costs involved in saving a human life, and they donate as much of their time and money as they can to the best and most effective charities in order to do the most good that they can do. And I link to this book and several other resources in the description because effective altruism is a very powerful philosophy of life. And a book that I can highly recommend that goes into this in more depth is called Doing Good Better by Will MacAskill of Oxford University. And in that book, he describes how much more effective the most effective charities are than the least effective ones, and how with a little planning and some tactical empathy, we can make a measurable impact on other real human lives all over the world. This is another book that changed my life, and I was pleasantly surprised to see it included in Pigliucci's book as well. Number 9, fight for the life you want and never cease questioning. It all comes down to doing your absolute best in life. Most people have no idea what their best even looks like. They're not even close to finding out. Doing your best isn't just about being okay with the outcome, lazily concluding, oh, well, I did my best. That's just the way it goes. No, fuck that shit. Doing your best is fucking hard. It takes commitment. It takes sacrifice, ceaseless questioning, and relentless forward movement. It doesn't just happen. That being said, the rewards that will come to you for actually doing your best are immense. They are far greater than you could ever know, unless you actively, passionately pursue it, unless you make it a conscious goal and a guiding light. So don't hold anything back. Your philosophy of life is your own. But once you've identified something that you feel is the highest good, then you have a moral and an ethical obligation to hunt it down. That's what it's meant for me. When I finally realized that part of my philosophy of life is about doing my absolute best, like giving everything that I possibly can to the things that I'm doing, that changed everything. And I have a moral and ethical obligation to do that, to pursue that for as far as it possibly goes. And so I was not blown away by this book. I mean, it's a good book, worth reading. Obviously, there are things in it that can change the direction of your life. If you can get past the dumb title, it's worth a read for sure. But no list on the internet is ever going to be a final answer. So these 9 things are a good start on how you can live a good life. But you have to, like number 1 says, you have to develop a philosophy of life of your own, and that's going to be a lifetime commitment. Okay, we're almost at the end of this video. Remember, I will be donating $1 to the charity First Book for every new subscriber to the channel. So what they do is they supply books to kids who otherwise wouldn't be able to afford to read them. So obviously, I get really fired up about that, and you can donate to them as well. I put the link down in the description where you can make a donation yourself. I'm just trying to get as many books into the hands of as many kids as possible. And also, what's in it for you besides the good feelings of buying books for kids? For everyone on my email list is automatically entered to win a book of their choice. So every month I pick one of my subscribers at random and I buy them a book of their choice. So you can do that down below. I usually send like 1 or 2 emails a week, usually 1. It's never like any sort of garbage or advertising or anything. It's book recommendations, reading tips, things of that nature. So with that, I'll leave it there and I will see you on the next video. Cheers.
I don't waste time, no, I make time. All these people wanna hate, fine, I'ma make mine. While you sitting there complaining, I'll be training. While you sitting there just waiting, I'm creating. Yeah. Sometimes I think that I'm unstoppable.